whenever I can take steps without legislation to expand opportunity for more American families, that's what I'm going to do. I'll act on my own to slash bureaucracy and streamline the permitting process for key projects. I will issue an executive order requiring federal contractors to pay their federally funded employees a fair wage of at least $10.10 an hour. I intend to keep trying, with or without Congress, to help stop more tragedies from visiting innocent Americans in our movie theaters and our shopping malls or schools like Sandy Hook.
Welcome to the Journal Editorial Report. I'm Paul Gigot. That was President Obama in his State of the Union address Tuesday night, vowing to go it alone if Congress refuses to act on his stalled agenda. It's hardly a new approach for the administration, which has made ample use of executive orders and regulation in the past. So what can we expect as his second term wears on? And do Republicans have any recourse? Let's ask Wall Street Journal columnist and deputy editor Dan Henninger, Washington columnist Kim Strassel, and assistant editorial page editor James Freeman. So, Dan, we at the Journal have argued in the past for a long time about energy in the executive, as Alexander Hamilton put it, that we need that. You need a president to lead. So what's wrong with the president of the United States now saying, look, I'm going to lead, I'm going to do this?
We have never said that the president should simply set the second branch of government aside, Congress, and have nothing to do with them, sure. So that's why we're talking about the unilateral presidency. And Obama has been going in this direction since the beginning of his term. After the 2010 elections was when he started doing things like deciding to enforce the DREAM Act on his own.
Right, but so you think that there is a difference in degree and kind with what this president is doing and previous presidents have done. Am I reading you fairly?
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that he has done, I think, have been described as literally breaking the law. I mean, for instance, telling states that they can get exemptions from the No Child Left Behind Act and things like that, or the Obamacare decisions that he made, which is simply overturned waiving the requirements for the mandate.
Employer mandate.
Employer mandate. And then, of course, the recess appointments that he made to the National Labor Relations Board. This is a lot different than taking executive decisions and executive authority or regulatory decisions that simply most discretion to the regulatory agencies have been accorded over time. This is a different degree altogether.
Kim, how much can this president really accomplish going out on his own? Can he fulfill an awful lot of his agenda this way?
A fair amount. I mean, look, there are obviously limits. So, for instance, in the gun debate, he really wanted gun legislation that would, for instance, restrict the capacity of magazines. And he needed Congress to do that. He has not been able to do that by executive order. But there's tons that he can do, and you do see him doing it in places like the Environmental Protection Agency. He didn't get Congress to pass a cap-and-trade bill for him, but he is, in essence, instituting it through regulatory fiat via the EPA.
Right.
And he will continue to do that. I mean, he laid out in the State of the Union this week the areas where you will see continued action like that.
James, on the EPA, what is the recourse if the president, when he moves on regulation like this? Is there a response? Obviously, it can be challenged in the courts, and you're seeing that. And for example, the recess appointment decision probably will be overturned in the coming months by the Supreme Court. But some of these other things, are the courts the only recourse?
Well, you have a few options. As you mentioned, the justices all seemed pretty skeptical of his claim that he, and not Congress, declares when Congress is in recess. If the courts can help, that's great. If not, Congress still does have a role to play. They have the appropriations power. They can say in the annual bills when they fund the government, you may not spend any of this money implementing X, Y, or Z. They also...
but the Senate will just say, look, you must fund it, because the Senate is controlled by the president's party.
Okay.
That's not really much, so that doesn't work very well so far.
Well, another option is there are ways that Congress can effectively force votes, referenda on specific federal regulations. Again, you need a Senate to cooperate, but I think if you're someone who wants to set the constitutional limits again on the president, what you think about is at least forcing some of these votes, making those Democratic senators, many of whom are up this fall, affirm whether or not they support the president's unilateral action.
You know, Dan, I also think this is the politics of this is about the president reasserting his leadership. He had a terrible 2013, and and his base is demoralized, and he wants to show them, look, I can still accomplish something. So look at me. I'm acting. I'm doing something, even if he ends up exaggerating the amount of things that he can get done.
Well, there's always the little issue of what exactly it is he's doing. I mean, substance at some level has to matter. And the problem with a lot of the Obama agenda is that it's hard to see where any of the things he wants to do is going to produce more economic growth than we have had. Most of what the Environmental Protection Agency is doing, such as trying to suppress, if not shut down, electrical utilities, has a downward effect on states out in the Middle West that either produce coal or that use it in their utilities. He went through this in his first term, where you had Democratic senators pushing back against the president's carbon control initiatives. So if the economy continues to stay, if unemployment stays high, I think there's going to be political pushback against what the president is doing.
On that point, Kim, do you think, I mean, we had Ted Cruz write in our paper this week, the imperial presidency of Barack Obama. Republicans seem willing to make this a big issue, but does this have traction politically this year? Is this something that is going to fire up Republicans and worry enough voters to make a difference?
Absolutely, and that was the risk of this State of the Union address, because as you said, yes, he wants to reassure his own base that he still has some juice. But this does not go over very well with independents, and obviously with Republicans. It's growing as a theme, and he has sort of energized that by talking about it so much. And one of the biggest problems that the president has is that when you look at the poll data, looking at him, he lacks trust among the American people. This will not help.
Okay, thanks, Kim.